Welcome, James.
Thank you.
So excited to have you here all the way from Hawaii.
Yeah.
You know, it's so funny. I was reflecting on the way over here and I was thinking about the first time I heard of Seatopia, which I don't know if you know this, but I'm a longtime fan and user of all things Seatopia.
Thank you.
It was V's Honey, Vanessa Fitzgerald, on her story many years ago. Like, I think it was, I don't know, I want to say like maybe 2021.
Okay.
Is that possible?
Yeah.
You launched in 2020.
2020, yeah.
And I just remember she had this like cast iron pan and she had salmon with the skin on it and she was like searing it in the pan. And I was like, I need whatever. First of all, I trust everything she recommends. She's like my filter. But also the salmon just looked so insane. And I am also someone who gets a little creeped out by fish from the wrong places.
Sure.
I assume you're also like that.
Very much.
You know, you see all these videos of fish at Whole Foods with like worms wiggling on them.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Oh man, it's funny how many people have seen these videos on TikTok and all that of you zoom in on this piece of fresh fish and it's got parasites living, right?
Yes.
It's a real thing. In the ocean, there's a lot of fish that accumulate a lot of parasites, right? Like if you were in Alaska and you went fishing with a guide and you caught a salmon along the side of the river and you were like, let's make some sashimi, he would stop you and be like, no, people can die from doing that. Don't eat this
Wow.
raw. It needs to be cooked or super frozen because they're accumulating living organisms. If they're eating these living organisms from an environment that has parasites, and there's certain environments where it's just common, right? And like if you caught a swordfish in the ocean, it almost always is going to have worms in it. It's just how nature's working at this level, at this high trophic level with these high predatory fish. But, you know, as we could maybe share, like there's species like Kampachi, which Seriolreveliana, or some people call them the itchy fish, because if you do a lot of scuba diving in the areas where they're at, you'll see that they rub up against the reefs, and sometimes they'll even rub up against people. I've actually been able to like cuddle a Kampachi. They come up and they rub on you because they'll have little, basically organisms living on them that they're trying to shake off.
They're like actually itchy.
Yeah, they're actually itchy. And in the wild, if you catch those, like here on the Atlantic side or on the Caribbean, people catch them quite often. They call them donkey fish, but they don't eat them raw, and they rarely ever even prioritize them because they're full of worms. But in an aquaculture environment with clean feed and a clean environment, clean water, clean feed, you can get a pristine sushi grade quality Kampachi is what it's called. In Japan, it's revered as one of the most beautiful forms of sushi.
Wow.
Clean inputs, clean outputs. It's like, you know, we have pigeons all over the city, right? But pigeons also on menu at certain restaurants. It's just not called pigeon because it's not wild.
It's not the New York City pigeon.
Yeah, it's literally
Got
something
it.
that's raised in a clean environment on a clean feed. Yeah, so those videos that you referenced are scary, but it's also just a symptom of a culture that only wants fresh seafood. They think fresh seafood is the best, but there's better ways to handle it than just leaving a fish fresh. If you super freeze it, you can create an environment that would destroy potential living organisms, and if you raise it in a cleaner environment to begin with, it's not going to bioaccumulate these other
Right.
living organisms.
I think these are the things that not a lot of people know are important inputs to the equation, right? We think that all fish is coming from the same place or wild caught is better. And we'll get into all of that because I have so many questions to pick your brain on. First, I want to get into your background.
I thought you
and-
wanted to just go straight into parasites and worms, which is,
By the way,
but
we're coming
it's
back.
shocking.
We're not done there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen the videos of the bears with the long white worms hanging out of their
Yeah.
butts while they
Yeah.
walk. And
Yeah.
like, it's exactly
People
what you're
too.
talking about. People too.
Gross image,
So
but yeah,
gross.
it's a thing.
Okay, so going back, because I want your whole origin story. I don't know all the details of it. I've obviously done my research. But upon looking even just at your Instagram, it is very clear that there is a strong love of the sea. And I'm curious when that started, if that was like, you know, is that a part of your origin story? Did you grow up on the water? Like, take us back as far as you want to go to sort of paint this picture.
I would love to know more about my origin further back, like my ancestors, because I just feel so
I
connected to
love that
the
that's where
ocean.
you went. You're like,
Yeah.
actually, it's not my lifetime, it's the other ones.
Yeah, I just recently like came across like a great aunt shared with me this journal from her father about how he had a logbook from this sailboat, and it kind of popped my bubble of like me
Wow.
thinking I was this unique individual with my own original ideas because I spent a lot of time on boats and at sea, and I
Hmm.
was like, oh, there was other boaters, and that influenced me. It's anyways, that's another
And
direction.
like, do you think that that's just in your genetics?
I think the ocean's in all of our genetics. I don't think I know it is, right? Because
Yeah.
we all have this connection to origins of life in the ocean on this planet. We all have essential fatty acids in the form of DHA. Like we have an essential connection
Hmm.
to omega-3 DHA, and DHA comes from marine environments. It doesn't come from other places, right?
Hmm.
You have all of this deeply connected. So I think that's a big part of why we all feel great when we eat seafood.
Hmm. Or when we're in the ocean.
Yeah, there's this remembrance that
It's
happens.
amazing. Yeah.
We want this beautiful, clean connection to electrical stimulus that transfers very efficiently when we have a rich source of DHA
Hmm.
in our eyeballs and in our brains. But my personal reflection and what I have in my life was, um, my father was a lifeguard, and I was always down at the water's edge. Like his idea of taking care of us was we would just run on the beach while he was at work.
Mm.
And my mom worked at SeaWorld for a while, and so I spent a lot of time there. In fact, every Thursday was like short days at school. My grandmother would take me and drop me off at SeaWorld, and I was
Okay.
just there.
I was not expecting you to say your dad was a lifeguard and your mom worked at SeaWorld. It's like the most sea friendly childhood I could possibly think of. It's amazing.
It's funny because my sister didn't had the same parents, but just went in a different direction, right?
Totally.
But it just is something that stuck with me, and it's like my happy place. It's like where I go
Hmm.
every morning at 6:30 a.m.
You surf?
Yes, yeah, every day. I don't want to say religiously, but it is part of a spiritual thing.
It's
Yeah.
so interesting. My husband surfs too, and he's like, it's my meditation.
Mm.
Is there like a high that you're getting while you're doing it?
Oh yeah, it can become an addictive high. Like there was a while when I thought it was the most important thing in the world to surf this particular spot on Oahu that had like high adrenaline inducing experiences.
Right.
But today it's more about, in a more mature way, getting to this place where I feel such gratitude and connection to the ocean.
Mm.
Like when I get to see the sunrise and the colors from the water in the morning, and I honestly reflect on how lucky I am to see that, it's the most beautiful way to feel that gratitude for life every
Yeah.
day. So,
God's no better way to start your day.
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
on that note in the water.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so that's where you grew up, obviously in the water, surfing the water with your parents. At what point did the passion switch or turn on to fish and creating a business?
Okay, let me see if I can do this quickly. SeaWorld was very influential. I got to like be the kid that hugs Shamu. I got to
It's amazing.
like make friends with the people that work there. I thought that was the job I needed to do when I grow up. They were like, you need to become a marine mammologist. You need to start volunteering.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, I'm working at this aquarium where I'm learning how to clean tanks and do all this sort of aquarium nerdy stuff, teaching like volunteer marine biology classes. And my boss at the time was like the lead aquarist, and he had developed this beautiful example of how we could raise steelhead trout in a way that would regenerate the local environment. So he was breeding steelhead trout, which is a species that was endemic to the environment where we were at, and he had demonstrated how we could eventually rehabilitate the local rivers and lakes and help these species be a part of the ecology again, because there's this beautiful relationship between the ocean and the rivers and the lakes. When you have organisms swimming from the ocean up into the rivers, they're bringing nutrients. This nutrient cycling that happens is really important to the environment.
Mm-hmm.
But he also demonstrated how we could raise them to maturity and harvest them and feed our community in a truly sustainable way. And that idea of truly regenerative food systems in the ocean in beautiful relationship with the ocean was this idea, this inception that took root and took a long time to germinate. But 20 years later, after I had a little bit of time to choose a project that I really wanted to do from a place of passion, I went and pursued the most innovative aquaculture facility that I could find, and we helped build a project to bring to market a Campacci, a Sedia reveliana, on innovative feeds in super low density, in pristine environment in the Sea of Cortez, where literally the vision and came to life of creating a true example of a solution to our relationship with the ocean, to how to raise beautiful, beautiful fish in a beautiful environment that was actually benefiting people, community, and planet. And it took 12 years to figure out how to make it profitable. And that's the Seatopia kind of became the solution on how do we create incentives for people to care, not just about sustainability that's sort of out of sight, out of mind, but how it directly impacts their health.
Right. Well, you also are luring them in with the most delicious fish ever. So I feel like I was saying to your team before, like, once you try it, it's a little hard to go back. Like, I spoiled my husband this summer. I think it was the Ora King salmon.
Okay.
And we kept our freezer out east just stocked with it. And we threw that on the grill, and we were both like, this is some of the best salmon we've ever had in our entire lives. It is so good. So clearly, I mean, I know that there's so much more even than just the taste. Can you talk a little bit more about these aquaculture farms? Because I think a lot of times people hear farm raised fish and their antennas go up. So like, how is that different? What should people be looking for? All of that.
Yeah. When we hear the term farmed cattle or farmed chicken, we don't automatically put up all of our guards. We ask questions. How was it farmed? How was it raised? What did it eat? These things are vastly different in industrial production systems intended to make the cheapest product available for people who don't ask questions versus a regenerative pasture-raised animal. What they eat and how they interact and their access to nature, the way they're harvested, all of that has a direct impact on the nutrient density and the vitality of those animals, right? And the same thing is happening in aquaculture. Not all farm seafood is good or bad. It depends on how it's done. Same concept. So in the best examples that we're trying to highlight with Seatopia, we developed the Seatopia standard, which is zero detectable microplastics, mercury levels that are low enough for a pregnant woman to consume all day long, 7 days a week.
Wow.
Quantifiable levels of EPA and DHA, and a balanced omega-3, omega-6 ratio. What that does is it makes it easier for somebody to just look at the telltale signs in the feed and the composition of the nutrients to say, was this raised in a healthy way? Because if you feed something corn and soy, it's going to have more omega-6s than omega-3s. So let's quantify the omega-3, omega-6 ratio. Let's quantify the levels of EPA and DHA. How much EPA and DHA is in a serving of fish? Because then you can compare apples to apples. Behind the scenes, what happens is we are helping create demand for practices that are focusing on healthier fish. Because if you want to follow the traditional business model for industrial production of chicken and beef, you just use corn and soy and feed it to them, even though it's not species appropriate. They get inflammation and fatty liver disease, but you give them a bunch of antibiotics and keep them alive until they're big enough to harvest with some hormones, right? That's the business model of a lot of food production in the world today. And it doesn't produce healthy food, right?
Right.
Foods can be superfoods. Food can be medicine, but not all food is medicine, right? So seafood, the big unlock is going back to where they get the richest source of that immune boosting source of DHA and EPA, which is the microalgae. So
that's what you're feeding the fish?
Microalgae in the feed, in the forms of microalgae oils and microalgae proteins, is what I'm hoping we see more demand for in the future, in the same way that grass-fed, grass-finished cattle has become sort of part of the cultural lexicon. People know to ask for it. They might not have been asking for it 10 years ago. Like 10 years
No,
ago,
they absolutely were not, and especially not grass finished.
Right.
They didn't know to ask.
It's an education thing,
Yeah.
right? Like 10, 15 years ago, people just wanted prime, whatever that meant.
Yes, totally. What did that even mean?
Yeah, USDA prime. I don't know what that means. But asking for grass-fed started it. Asking for grass-finished brings it to another level. Regenerative practice is another level. Well, microalgae fed, microalgae finished. This is a big part of changing the production side of seafood in order to produce healthier fish. If the fish are healthier, the environment's healthier, and through the Seatopia standard, we can quantify which fish have the highest levels of EPA and DHA, which is a direct result of that feed.
That's amazing. And so you're feeding them this algae within their food. What are other people feeding fish? Like, what is the corn and soy version of farmed fish?
Corn and soy. Corn and soy is a big part of it.
Huh.
GMO corn and soy is unfortunately a part of a lot of it. I wouldn't say that soy in itself is a bad thing, right? But genetically modified with glyphosates and things like that really becomes an issue. And imbalanced omega-3, omega-6 ratios, you can make a fish pretty fatty just with giving it canola oil and
Of course.
and whatnot. But it actually is also going to increase the inflammation levels in these animals. Fatty liver disease is a thing in these animals. To produce healthier fish, you need to look at what's species appropriate. So with salmonids, for example, trout, steelhead, and salmon, insects are a part of their natural diet. So insect proteins is actually something that is species appropriate, sustainable, scalable, in some cases even regenerative, and can produce great nutrient profiles. I don't really want to eat insects directly, but if you want to feed it to an animal that's part of their natural diet,
By all
that's
means.
beautiful. We could build a food system on that.
Yeah.
So we have farms that we're working with today that in some cases we're stuck in like pilot phase sort of university projects because the retailers literally told one of these farms, hey, this idea that you're doing with insect protein and microalgae doesn't sound very attractive to our customers. Can you just focus on bringing the price down on the other stuff you do, and we'll buy more of that? And they reached out to Seatopia, and because we're able to lab test, so I don't know if we touched on this, but we lab test all of our products. We send multiple samples of every product to quantify the cleanliness and the nutrient density. And it's that data, making that data accessible to humans, that's helping create demand. Because as a nerdy marine biologist, I think that microalgae and insect proteins is cool, but not everybody does. But what's working right now is comparing apples to apples. What is the bioavailable milligrams per serving of DHA and EPA in sample A versus sample B? And that is a direct reflection of the feed.
Right. So you have so much control over these in this aquaculture farm environment. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, controlled inputs, controlled outputs, In some cases, they're still feeding them fish meal and fish oil, which is generally ground up either byproduct or sardines and anchovies or anchovetas, things like that. Those are finite supplies. Like there's a finite amount of fish in the ocean, which sounds ridiculous, right? The ocean is so abundant, it's ginormous, but the gross production of seafood wild caught on the planet continued to increase year after year until 2020. And then since 2002, the gross production of wild caught seafood has plateaued. They're not finding more fish. There is a finite supply.
Interesting.
They've kind of moved to different regions. People are now harvesting in the Arctic, the foundation of the food web, krill, things like that, which is a very slippery slope, which I don't condone. But there's not like a new abundant resource that's going to save us. in order to produce more seafood from a finite supply, we need to use regenerative food systems.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm a big fan of microalgae and insect proteins, because they
makes so
can
much
be
sense.
produced in a scalable manner.
Do you see a world where years from now or even in the near future, what fish are fed is actually on the label as more of a standardized thing like with beef?
Yes, please, absolutely. That's the vision for Seatopia, is a world where we actually have a relationship with the ocean that is transparent and positive, right? And a big part of that is knowing what we're eating, not this blindly consuming things, right? This commodification of seafood has had very negative impacts on the ocean and on humans, right? And it's not because somebody had some diabolical plan. It's just that if you're trying to distribute massive volumes of a highly perishable good, the commodification and sometimes renaming of things happened, right? They
The
just
goals
had to
get
move it
misaligned.
quickly, right?
Yeah.
So with Seatopia, actually, we don't do any fresh seafood. Everything is super frozen at peak freshness and then kept frozen throughout the supply chain, which actually reduces the carbon footprint because it doesn't rely on air freight. It also creates stability in the molecules that are in the fish and preserves the fragile long chain fatty acids much more efficiently. Because if you think about like the perceptions of fish being fishy, fish are not fishy in the ocean. You don't jump in the ocean and go, gosh, it smells so fishy here.
You're
right?
so right.
That happens when people are exposing these fragile molecules to oxygen over extended periods of time, calling it fresh. Like fish markets smell because the fish are rotting. Fish don't smell like that when they're perfect.
That's a really gross concept. But you're right. I've never opened a Seatopia and been like, the kitchen smells like fish now. Ever.
It should never. If you do, it will be replaced immediately. And don't eat it. Don't eat fishy fish.
Yeah. And so, okay, your system is, it's caught and immediately frozen in a specific way. Like, is your freezing process different than, say, rando seafood company? What's the difference?
So much. I mean, the whole business model had to be built from a place of how do we do this with integrity? Like from day one, I said, we're not going to do this if we have to use styrofoam. And frankly, most fresh seafood distribution relies on styrofoam because it works really well.
Yeah. You
But
see it, I can like envision it right now.
Yeah.
Everything's styrofoam.
So much styrofoam because you have to keep it in this specific threshold of temperature. It can't be too cold because you don't want your fresh fish to incorrectly freeze, because the way you freeze fish really matters. If it freezes slowly, it creates these intricate, large snowflake crystals, and each of those crystals is cutting through the connective tissue muscle fiber. And if you do too much of that and the temperature continues to fluctuate, you end up with mushy fish. You also don't want it to get too warm because then it spoils right away. So it's difficult to maintain fresh fish. With frozen, we can send it to negative 78 degrees with dry ice and keep it there, and it doesn't have any negative impacts. It's actually beautiful.
Right. And I assume that's like pretty much immediately after it's caught so that it doesn't get fishy.
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah. I mean, there's a process of, there's a whole process of like, how do you remove lactic acid from fish? How do you cool the fish? Sometimes introduction of ozone to clean the fish.
Interesting.
Yeah, ozone's a really beautiful thing to use in the processing and cleaning of fish. And then, so there's like the drying, the removing of moisture, removing of certain potential pathogens, and then bringing the temperature down as low as possible, as quickly as possible.
And then how quickly from there is it shipped to people's homes? Like, what is that process like? I assume you have to deal with a lot of logistics and supply chain.
That's mostly Clark, who you met.
That's what keeps Clark up at night.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time on this stuff as well, but it's not really about how quickly it gets there, because once it's frozen, the shelf life is awesome, right? As long as it's frozen properly, because there's a big difference between your home freezer and an industrial blast freezer or nitrogen freezer, IQF freezing. These methodologies are intended to minimize how large those water molecules get inside of there. The smaller those molecules is a direct reflection of how quickly it was brought down to temperature.
But if I then transfer it into my refrigerator, Is that a different, does it create a different like time clock for
It
it?
does because, well, it depends on
Wow.
what freezer you have. So if you have probably not as much of a big deal with your meat proteins,
Mm-hmm.
but with fish, and I would also say things like berries, like your like frozen raspberries.
Because they do get all icy.
They get icy because your freezer that's in your kitchen has an auto de-icing cycle. And what does that mean? It means when it starts to build up ice in there, it literally, the temperature comes up so that the ice can melt. And the same thing is happening to the ice crystals that are in and around your proteins and your frozen raspberries.
Didn't know that.
So you should keep your fragile, it's not a big deal if it's only in there for a month,
Mm-hmm.
but if you're going to keep anything in there for long-term storage, you should have a chest freezer that does ice up. It's a stable long-term storage solution because it doesn't fluctuate in temperature.
Is that what you keep your fish in at home?
Yeah, we have in the garage, we have a chest freezer, and then we move things into the upstairs freezer for like that week's or 2 weeks worth of consumption. And then 24 to 48 hours before we're going to use something, we're just always moving something from the freezer to the fridge. And we do the proper defrost as well.
Wow.
Do you do the...
No. Okay, wait. So
hold on.
Okay. I've
You know
got
about
so
the
many.
proper defrost?
I don't know this, but before we get to that, because I'm literally thinking about how I need to defrost my salmon for dinner tonight.
It's too late.
Oh no. But before we go to that, how long am I able to have fish in the freezer at home, or the listener who's like panicking because they've had it in there for 3 months?
It doesn't... It's not going to go bad. It's just not going to have that beautiful sushi grade texture. It's
Gonna get a little bit
to,
because it's tearing through the.
Yeah, you're going to start seeing it like get softer.
Okay. What's like ideal?
A month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, I got a lot of salmon to eat.
Just move it into the downstairs.
I need an ice chest.
You need a chest freezer.
Okay.
You need a chest freezer. And the holidays are coming, so you can have a big dinner party.
Yeah.
And you can put
Salmon
it all
for
in the
everybody.
smoker. You can cure it. There's so many beautiful things you can do around the holidays with it. Yeah.
Okay, so defrosting process, tell us. I think we've all been doing it wrong.
Yeah, the way that people defrost meat is very different than they should defrost seafood, and it has to do with these the water content. So if you've ever, what I don't want you to do is take something that's a beautiful high quality piece of sushi grade seafood in a vacuum seal bag, and I don't want you to just put it in the fridge in the vacuum seal bag. What I want you to do is remove it from the bag while it's still frozen, wrap it in paper towels, or even nerdier, you can use this special paper towel called tuna paper. Basically, you just want a paper that that's strong and doesn't have bleach and other things in it.
Yeah, so okay, it sounds like I need to get tuna paper.
Yeah. You wrap it in that
Okay.
and you put it in the fridge. You could also put it on a wire rack. So that the idea is that you want it to wick moisture while it's defrosting, so that any water content that's in it, instead of sitting in a vacuum sealed bag, basically creating a petri dish environment, you want it to be dry and cold. So dry and cold, it's going to pull moisture away. If you pull it out while it's still frozen, wrap it in paper towels, leave it in there for 12 hours, you'll see the bags as it's defrosting, the paper towels start to saturate. Then you change the paper towel again. And then, 24, 36, even 48 hours later, that fish is going to be dry and cold and beautiful. And the most important thing, it's going to be tight.
So you're not rinsing it after that. It's
No.
staying exactly as is.
Not rinsing it, absolutely. I don't want to introduce chlorinated faucet water.
You're so right. What have I been doing? I've been having it sit in chlorinated faucet water in a bowl in the fridge while it's defrosting.
Okay, no.
Straight to jail.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's blasphemy.
This is really important that we're
So,
having this conversation.
Wrapped in paper towels.
Okay.
It's in there. And what's happening as the water is wicking is you're actually changing the ratio of water and fat to protein. And as the water gets pulled away through wicking moisture, 12 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, you've actually lost water weight, but the proteins and the fats are still there. So you've actually increased the ratio of fat.
Wow.
And it's tighter now. So you're going to have better texture, concentrated flavor. If you go and do sashimi slices on a piece of fish that was sort of, we'll call it dry aged in this manner, it's going to be tighter, it's going to hold together better, and it's going to have more concentrated flavor.
Speaking of sashimi,
Also, if you're cooking it, you always want your proteins to be as dry as possible when you cook them to get that beautiful.
I was just thinking that's why I'm not getting the sear.
You're not going to get
it's
a
wet.
sear. It's going to, if
Steaming.
it's wet, it's steaming.
We don't want that.
No.
Okay.
That Maillard, that happens with that dry protein in direct contact with the heat. Also, you should be using parchment paper when you cook your.
Never foil.
So I put a piece of parchment paper in the cast iron pan or stainless steel, any pan, like when I'm frying, like a piece of branzino, fish, whatever. A little bit of olive oil, parchment paper, non-toxic parchment paper, obviously. Yeah. And then a little bit of olive oil on top, and then the fish actually is going to fry on top of that. Low temperature. You don't need a high temperature sear fish for getting that beautiful crispy skin. You can avoid getting the fish. Traditionally, we were taught to use super high temperatures to avoid the skin sticking. Mm-hmm. If you use the parchment paper on a medium heat, it won't stick.
And it's not going to like catch on fire?
It's not going to catch on fire. You're going to get this beautiful chemical reaction when this browning of the skin, and it's going to release so easily. You could let it cook 3/4 of the way through and flip it over just to kiss the other side, or just leave it like that. It's an absolute game changer. But
wow, I never would have thought to do that.
Yeah, but we're getting, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All of this, by the way, if you see on the website, there's a section called concierge, and you can book a one-on-one with a chef, Chef Clark, Chef Miriam. They will literally spend 45 minutes with you, like helping you execute one of like 6 different recipe options or something of your choice.
That's amazing, because if you're going to buy it and it's obviously like a higher price point because it is so high quality, you want to really do it right. I mean, I'm thinking back to all the things I've been doing wrong, and I like to think I'm pretty versed in this stuff.
Sorry.
So I think we could all use the concierge.
Yeah.
But you are that for us on today's episode, so this is very helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to touch on a couple of things. First is the microplastic and mercury conversation. You briefly touched on that. So it is microplastic free of detectable microplastics and in the mercury safe zone.
Yeah. These are all legal terms because we have to cover our bases here. But, we developed the standard to say, how do we eat something that's safe and safe enough for our most vulnerable. My family at the time, my wife was pregnant, and she asked me, what can I eat and what shouldn't I eat and how much can I eat? And that is a question that needed to be answered with a calculator that hadn't been created. So it was like, okay, what is the actual parts per million of mercury in each product, and how much then would be in a serving size, and how many serving sizes can you, in this vulnerable state of your development, eat on a daily basis? And that allowed us to say, well, here's the safe levels, and here's the ones that are out of that safe level on the mercury side. And with microplastics, we just said we want 0 detectable microplastics.
That's incredible.
And that allows us to just make it really simple. Like if it's in the Seatopia catalog, it's 0.1 parts per million or less of mercury, which means my wife was consuming Seatopia every single day. It's 0 detectable microplastics, and it has that balanced omega-3, omega-6 ratio.
Thoughts on eating Seatopia pregnant raw?
Look, talk to your doctor, talk to like your everybody.
Yeah.
But raw is how you're going to get the most bioavailable form of that triglyceride, DHA, and EPA, and those nutrients are going to just assimilate. My wife consumed it raw throughout her whole pregnancy. In fact, she felt like eating anything cooked in a certain phase in her pregnancy was repulsive. Like she just felt like she couldn't digest something. She only wanted to eat it raw. And it was also the very first raw solid foods we gave our babies was the caviar, the salmon roe caviar.
Love
I
that.
would only have this level of confidence feeding it to my own children because of the data that I have from the certificate of analysis, quantifying mercury levels, quantifying presence or no presence of microplastics, and the way that it was frozen the super freezing, the temperatures it was brought to. So the FDA has this thing called the Parasite Destruction Protocol. And it basically says you have to bring things down to a certain temperature and keep it at a certain temperature to ensure if there was any living organisms in that it would have been destroyed. So
Does that work?
it does work, but it's not, you can't do it with your home freezer. It's not cold enough. Even if you kept it in there for a year, it has to be much lower temperature. Your home freezers get to like 0 at best. Like you need to go to like -30, and we bring it down even lower, and we keep it down there throughout the transportation and throughout the storage. And that has a profound effect on the insurance that we feel that this is safe. On top of that, the FDA also has this exception. The exception is if the fish are raised in an aquaculture environment fed a certified parasite-free feed. Guess what? Almost every product that we have has 2 layers of assurity, and that brings the confidence to say, here is a better alternative than supplements. And if you want to eat this, like my kids love salmon roe caviar. They just love it.
That's
Why?
amazing.
Because they just feel it. Like
Yeah.
all those neurons fire, right? They haven't been clouded in their judgment in what is a sugar and all these other weird things. Like what their bodies tell them is good is what, when those receptors, those healthy, clean receptors are firing, and they feel it with salmon roe caviar and with the raw fish. We can have this experience only because of the Seatopia standard, only because of the transparent supply chain, certificate of analysis, and cold chain. Like every box has that thermometer in there, right? Like you know that it was kept cold throughout that journey. I know how long it's been in my refrigerator. It hasn't been like sitting at a fish counter fresh in parentheses for an unknown number of days.
Right. No, it's really incredible. I'm like I was saying, I'm not someone who I could never get down with ordering even just like sushi on Uber Eats or whatever. Like it just doesn't sit right with me. I need to know there's high quality. I get very icked out with any protein, with any animal or fish protein that like I don't totally know everything about. It's very easy for me to get a little bit icked. I was a vegetarian for like the first 9 years of my life by choice. And so I really appreciate that level of transparency and integrity, and not to mention the taste.
Yeah.
How many days a week are you eating seafood?
Sometimes every day, but it's not like, I'm not like I only eat fish person, you know?
Yeah.
But I love eating fish for breakfast, like a piece of grilled salmon with eggs and it's just one of my favorite things. Like Giusta restaurant in Venice has that beautiful salmon bowl. Like that is something I'm always trying to recreate at home.
So good. Yeah, I've had that.
Yeah.
You know, there's one here now in New York.
I know they were working on it. Yeah.
I heard you guys have a lot of vegan customers. Can you talk about the Seagans? I was very surprised to learn that.
It's funny. I think it goes back to that connection to the ocean and to nutrients that really bring us vitality, right? Like there's a bunch of people who send us messages. They're like, I'm vegan, but I secretly eat Seatopia. That's a lot. Or
They're like, it feels like a plant.
Yeah, they make exceptions because they feel good.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what it's all about.
Yeah, feel good. I'm not trying to say this is what everybody should do, but if you were concerned about negative impacts on the environment, if you were concerned about unhealthy, like we're going to share all that information with us. Like, you want to go and visit one of the farms with us? Like, that's a thing. We make that happen. You want to see a certificate analysis? That's a thing. We make that happen. Like, all of that is there for people to feel like they have a real relationship to this blue planet and to where their food is coming from. And yeah, it's kind of a thing that pops up very regularly, that we hear from people that they're vegans plus Seatopia.
It's incredible because it's not even like you guys are targeting the vegans. They're just finding you, and it's this very beautiful, pure, it makes sense. Like when I read that, I was like, oh, of course. Like if a vegan's going to eat fish, it's going to be Seatopia, obviously, you know?
Yeah. And a lot of people who are saying, oh, I haven't eaten fish in 10 years, 5 years. I saw this documentary. I've been trying to avoid mercury. We're sort of bringing them back in, right?
Because you're solving for all the things that people maybe could have heard the wrong thing about.
I think so. I think so. And it's also just a really nice way to eat seafood. Like even there's a few like practitioners who lead like detox retreats, and then one of the first meals like they'll do like broth and like a Seatopia. It's just like I think your body can digest it really nicely,
Yep.
and it starts to fire those neurons again. It's like it feels good, it feels
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. No, you're so right. So I'm curious, James, as we wind down, any wellness rituals that you incorporate on a daily basis? It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but you seem like you have very grounded energy. And I'm just curious, like, even being in New York, are there little things that you're doing to kind of maintain your regulation or not?
Well, I haven't been in New York very long,
Fair.
but um, just reflecting on what I felt here was like, wow, I went out of my way to walk on the sunny side of the street as much as I could.
Vitamin D.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time um, connecting to nature in as direct a way as I can. I think sunlight is a really big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot about this idea of solar resilience, right?
Mm.
Like if you're drinking alcohol and have an inflammatory diet and you go out in the sun, you're probably going to burn. But if you're have a healthy diet and a robust immune system, and you're incorporating things like astaxanthin into your diet,
What is that?
it's it's a red carotenoid that comes in the way that we get it from a microalgae.
Okay.
So it's a specific type of microalgae that is this beautiful green microalgae when it's underwater, but when it's exposed to sunlight, it turns bright red. And it's also known as one of the richest, strongest antioxidants on the planet. It's also what makes shrimp red, and it's what makes salmon red, and it's what makes flamingos red, and it's a supplement you can get anywhere. But yeah, I'm a big fan of astaxanthin, both internally and topically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also like really important that astaxanthin is in the feed for salmon and trout and steelhead and things like that.
Do you get it from consuming fish?
You get it from consuming fish if the fish were fed it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's different sources of astaxanthin, but from microalgae is the most like healthiest format of it. But you can also get it just, in the supplement section. And
Good to know.
yeah,
Seems like a hidden gem supplement.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Where can everyone find you and Seatopia? And I know that your team was kind enough to also make a code for our listeners.
Seatopia.fish is our URL. .fish. Seatopia spelled Seatopia. Yeah, you can find us on the socials at Seatopia. And for anybody that wants to try, I think, the code is TWP. And if I'm not mistaken, they get to try the salmon roe caviar for free when they order, which is
Yes.
really beautiful. And more people should be consuming. It's the absolute superfood of the ocean. Like the salmon puts so much nutrients into each of those little salmon roe, so that a little baby salmon, unlike most fish that when they're born they immediately have to go and eat something, a little baby salmon fingerling can live for 30 days on the nutrients that's in there, and we get to just consume it like straight caviar bumps or a big spoonful on top of your eggs or your toast or your sushi, or just right in your mouth. It's pure DHA in the most bioavailable format.
How are we defrosting that? Sorry, I know that.
Oh, easy.
Okay.
That one you defrost as quickly. Just take it from the fridge, put it in the fridge.
Pop the tin in the fridge.
Yeah, just pop the tin in the fridge, and then when it's defrosted, big metal spoon, pry it sideways, and then a little tiny porcelain spoon straight into your mouth.
Yum, so good. Now I'm craving that texture and that pop.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
The best.
pop of ocean miroir and saltiness, crisp.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Elizabeth.